Alright, hey guys, and welcome to what is going to be my first voice recorded video in a while. I know the mic quality probably isn't that good, but it is what it is. That's what I got for now. Today, I just wanted to go over some issues, I guess you could call them, some common practices and problems I see in building in this game. And I just wanted to kind of correct them and point them out, right? So, first, we have this building. Now, there's nothing necessarily wrong about this building, but the shape is quite boring. And I see a lot of these 1x2, 2x3, 3x3, mostly rectangular and square buildings. If you really look at it, all this building really is a line with a roof on it. That's all it really comes down to here. But if we want to really stand out with these buildings, I would suggest a couple different ways to make it dynamic. As we see here, we can add different layers to the building, such as these kind of outcroppings. I like to do this a lot. Sometimes this can even replace the poles we have here. Say you have a building that you want to have a kind of... Never mind. Just say you have a building and you want it to look interesting and outlined, that's the word, without having to use beams. I would suggest instead using these kind of layers. So, of course, we should texture this part. Give it maybe a rock. Personally, I would recommend using a skinnier block, but you can see how it gives it a kind of outline to the building that would make it look a little bit better than just a flat rectangle. Of course, a better and more often used way is to give it a different shape than these rectangles. I'll show a couple more examples later, but one I really want to steer you against is using these corner buildings. Now, I see these a lot, and at least personally speaking, I consider these to be quite sloppy. The corner edge here does work if used correctly, but in general, you don't want to have to end a building in a corner, because to keep a building interesting, you want it to have what's called breakaways. So to fix this building, all you really would have to do is make it come out a bit this way and a bit this way, and of course you'd have to fix all the roofing as well, so it could be a little bit annoying. But if you just change the basic shape of this. This is what's called a T style building. A lot of shapes of buildings really follow letters of the alphabet. I'm not sure why, but it does work. I'll show you a couple more in a few seconds. But you can see it's a T because it has a stem, and then it has the actual T part of it. I guess if you really want it to be a T, you would make this part longer, but you don't necessarily have to. Let me just quick as I can finish this part off. For the roof, really the best way to do this is to just make them intersect. If you don't have disable collisions, there's a way to do it, of course, where you don't even have this middle part, and instead you just use these roof corners to completely hide up that area. So you wouldn't even need these 8 or so roof pieces. Just like that. It's hidden. Not a problem at all. Now, I won't do the trims just to save on time, but you can imagine that with the trims, it would have a much nicer outline to it. So yeah, you can already tell that this is much more appealing to the eye than maybe a corner building would be. And if you could tell from the last two buildings, the last thing I'll talk about here is color correction. Now, I want to preface by saying this isn't necessarily a bad building. Sure, it looks a little bit contrasting, especially with the colors, but I've seen many parks that have a different art style, you might call it, and they do look good if done correctly. Even a building like this, you know, I'm sure there's a park out there that would happen to have a building just like this, and it could work for the effect they're going for. But personally, with my art style, I like to have really complementing colors and textures. So we'll try to clean up this building and how I would see the colors fit. So let's start with the base of the building, just to get an idea. And while not using this very highlighter type of green, let's still try to use a more desaturated type of green. Now, desaturated just means it has less and less of that specific color. It usually gets darker, but say this red is a lot more saturated than this red, which is a lot closer to white. See how it slowly transitions to a more, where's the white? A more white color? That's not white. A more white color. Right, so let's choose maybe a, what's texture I don't use a lot? Marble? Sure, marble. A marble desaturated green. I don't really work with marble a lot, so this will be difficult for me. But I'm always accepting of a challenge. So we have a general marble. Now maybe for this brick under roof, we might want to give it also a green, maybe a dark green. Now the problem with bricks is it has these white in between each brick. I wish they let you fix that with like a secondary texture, but it always gives it a slightly, I guess you would call it a Hogwarts Slytherin color. That's what I see this as, you know, Slytherin Hogwarts. Oh, it has a trim. That's interesting. Well, let's make that green as well. So we have a lighter green, darker green. For the roof, let's do an entirely different, but trying to make it still complement the green color. Let's see. I don't want to do another green. Of course, on the other side of the color wheel of green is red, but green and red usually comes out to be a little too Christmassy for my taste. So let's try a more reddish brown. That's still red. Reddish brown. Let's see if that does any favors. And it looks a bit poopy in my opinion. I never liked the poopy brown, so let's see if we can get a little bit. This is like a yellow brown. You know, yellow and green always kind of went together in my opinion. Let's change it from marble to maybe rock to give it a little bit of contrasting lines here, contrasting colors. I might mention, and this is something that I'm not sure everybody knows, but the textures change the shade of the color as well. So say you have a concrete yellow, let's say. If you use that same color on this brick but made it rock instead, where's rock? See, it makes it slightly darker, and even darker than that would be maybe fabric. So if you want to have, if you think the color selection isn't enough, you can just use the textures to kind of give yourself different colors that it doesn't usually give you. Now I think these colors so far are looking pretty good together. The poles, we gotta fix those, of course. Maybe a this is like a brown gray. So far I actually like it even with this brown that I'd originally put here. I think we can keep that wall brown. Now for this outline layer, this platform, you know, I kind of really like this texture here. It's like a purple corroded metal, but it doesn't really work for here. Maybe for an oil spill or a weird fever dream it would work, but for here it just doesn't really fit with. So let's try to find a good red-brown again and see if we can get a nice platform here. Something like this. I don't think that's working. And of course, the best way to find which colors work is to test as many colors as you can and see what you like the most. Ooh, maybe we can do like an orange. An orange. That's not orange, that's yellow. Let's see. It's a bit too much. Of course, all the desaturated oranges are more of a burgundy, in my opinion. Let's see if this middle one works. Oh, that's looking nice. Like I said, yellow and green have a slight cohesion. Now, this might not be the usual building that you'd see me make. Let's make these corners a different color. I don't think I've ever really combined green with any type of yellow before, but you know, seeing this, it might be something that I try out in the future, since it doesn't seem to be going so badly. Is that guy floating? Oh, he's floating. Look at that. What's he doing? He's... move, move. What is that? He's blowing his nose. Right, so you can see that compared to the last building we had, I'd say this is a little bit better. Now, finally, I wanted to go over the shapes that I brought up originally. Let's just use a normal plastic texture for these. So, I've already shown you the T. Now, T's usually have this bump up here when it comes to building because it adds a little bit of it makes it so it doesn't just cut off here, right? You don't necessarily have to do that, but I like to do it just to have another face to work with that you could put windows and beams, what have you on. Of course, you saw I made this side longer. That's another detail you can have. Say you wanted, let's say that this side is a bit longer. Try to use your imagination for this. Say you have this side a little bit longer, and you wanted to make this one slightly longer. Now you can try and imagine how that would give it some dissonance. Of course, the more you do that, the more you start to go and lean into a different shape, which is the L shape. Oh, that's not the texture I wanted to do. We got an L shape right here. Now, like I said, I really don't like the use of corners. So for this, I would make one of them come out a little bit more. For an L shape, you usually only want one to come out and you want to break it off, but you know, I'd still say that this is an L shape. Of course, now the T and the L look slightly similar. That's fine. If anything, actually, instead of having it come out by like a full block, you'd have just half a block. You know, that gives it a little bit of difference as well. Another one I see commonly is the H shape. Now this one, there's a lot of ways to play with this one. I think the most common way I like to see it is you'd have, this is larger than I usually see them, but you'd have two lines with their roofs on respectively, but the middle section has more of a, I forget the name of the style, but it's more of a around the world trim kind of deal. So we have this going all the way around. Let's give it a slightly different color so you can see what's the roof and what's not. And you can see it has this kind of lip here. Another way you could do it, of course. Now, feel free to just, in any world, really practice and try as many methods with this as you can, because there's so many different ways to use these letters. This is also an H. It looks kind of like a, I guess we call it like an apartment or a dormitory. So if you were making a college campus maybe for your park, you'd have a building like this and would work nicely. Or a hotel. Let's see. Of course, you can start just making up letters, really. Say you don't really know what to do for a building. How about a J? How would we do this? So maybe we'd have like a shed in the back, and let's see how we do the curve here. So we'll have, you know, one building kind of looking like this, and we want to start going this way. And really, you know, I know there's some people out there that could probably pull this off. You can make a curved building. Let me put this on a half real quick so I can place this roof here. And you see this a lot nowadays, people making curved walls. For this, I'm going to use the pivot tool because I'm lazy and don't want to have to place each block one by one. Right. So, say you wanted the wall to go about here. Does that look equal? Of course, you want this pivot in the middle here. Yes. You would just pivot around. Let me try to zoom out so you can really see the circle working here. Circle around. And there you have a circle wall. Why did I delete that? I still need the second layer. It was about here, I think. Now, here comes the difficult part. The roof. How would we do the roof? Wow, there's so many different ways that you could try this out. So, obviously, we could just try and pivot this roof around. And, you know, if you kind of ignore the ridges here, if anything, it could really add to the look. If you've ever seen E.T. maybe, those laboratories with the kind of, like the plastic and the ridges in between. That always looks cool. But, let's try, I have an idea. What if we make it very circular? So we put in a cylinder, you know, kind of rotate it here. Is that big enough? Oh, it'll manage. Of course, now it doesn't make sense with this roof right here, but what's the matter? Put that in the middle. Now this is gonna. Yes, that is one problem, that they're slightly too large. But if you have the patience, you can place block by block. You know, make it a 2 by 1. So you have all these spaces. Just pull it out a bit. And, you know, if the roof ridges were too much, this is going to be almost inconceivable. But given enough patience, I'm sure someone can find a way to make this flat along the walls here. Actually, now I think about it, I think the best course of action would be to select each wall and create that cylinder wall by wall. Now, of course, these are more advanced building practices, and I would suggest that you get a little more experience with the general building rules before trying to do something as intense as a curved wall. So that was my try at a J building. But really, with the alphabet system, you only want to start with like the first 7 letters in the alphabet. Of course, the A's and B's stand less for the shape of the building, because, you know, you could have a A-shaped building, but who wants to go out there and make diagonal walls, right? Instead, the A shape is more about the roof. So an A shape would be your pretty standard just triangle shape. I don't know why they call it this, because, you know, you could just call it the triangle building, but I guess A-frame just sounds better. I always forget, they're not called triangles, they're called roofs, which someone in the last video made sure to tell me is not spelled with a V. It's actually spelled with an F. So, you know, I guess we all make mistakes. I'm trying to think of some of the other letters that I can show off here. A, B, C. C would have a more analog look, and I would suggest again using, let's say for this we have this longer one and here we have the shorter ones, to always try to break up the walls here. Let's see, we have C, D. That would be another curved wall, or maybe you want to make it diagonal. There's no problem with making it diagonal, you know. Just have this out a bit, and then you could give it a more angled wall. That's a D. You know, D's have a hole in them, so if you really wanted to, you could, you know, have it come out a little bit, and then in the middle there, because remember, these buildings can be like 3 times larger than I'm making them here. You could put like a Zen garden in here, maybe a you could put anything. You could put like a outdoor kitchen, bathhouse, spa house. What are those called? The jacuzzis, hot springs, anything really. Let's see, C, D, E. Oh well, E's simple really. You just add another one of those. There you go. See, I gave it a slightly shorter thing because to give it some organic feeling, right? Another thing I want to touch on is, like I just said, organic. Really, I only remembered because I used that word. So imagine you're making 2 castle towers, right? Let's make this brick. Brick. Give it the, what are those walls called? Oh, it's just called wall. Now, for larger buildings, like a huge castle, you wouldn't much care if the wall was, if the towers were all the same size. But if you want just like a gate, I would suggest making one shorter than the other, maybe making one wider or having a larger base than the other. In general, anything to give it what everybody calls a symmetry, making things not look completely symmetric or the same. So what it does is it kind of leads the eye to look around more, really. Because if you just have them the same size, someone's going to look at it and just see, you know, they'll see the H and they'll think, oh, that's cool. But if you have different shapes, they'll kind of like look around and maybe see some more details that you've added in. I think that's all that I'm going to cover for today. Thanks for making it through this video. This is mostly a test to see how my microphone works. And I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you.